My name is Alexander Everhart, and I'm a postdoctoral research fellow at the Harvard Center for Regulatory Science. I collaborated with Ariel Stern at the Center for Regulatory Science at Harvard Business School on our book chapter, Post-Market Surveillance of Software Medical Devices, Evidence from Regulatory Data. Both Ariel and I are health economists by training and do a lot of work looking at how regulations influence the quality of new medical technologies. So the project is primarily motivated by the fact that healthcare in general is digitizing and medical devices are no exception. And on the one hand, this could be beneficial. It's having software added to these devices is enabling new remote patient monitoring opportunities, increasing both the quality and the quantity of data available to patients and providers. At the same time, introducing new software components to previously analog devices can introduce new complications and create software errors that ultimately harm patients. In terms of detecting those safety issues, the FDA's pre-market review process isn't really set up to catch those proactively. Most medical devices will not enter the market with any sort of human clinical data demonstrating that a device is either safe or effective. Instead, what we tend to do is rely on post-market surveillance to detect safety issues kind of as they crop up after a product is already on the market. So what we did is used FDA regulatory data to understand the safety profile of medical devices with software and compare it to medical devices without software. We looked at adverse events, which are discrete individual events, things like deaths or malfunctions attributable to a medical device, as well as recalls of medical devices, which focus on cases where a safety issue is known and either the FDA or a manufacturer takes the device off the market. What we found is that software-enabled medical devices consistently experience higher recalls compared to medical devices without software. However, we don't consistently see differences in adverse events when comparing devices with and without software. So the takeaway we have is that adverse event reporting is a noisy signal for overall post-market safety of medical devices. Sometimes you can count up those individual injuries or malfunctions to understand when a device is safe, but sometimes it just doesn't show up in the data. So the conclusion is that we can't assume that just because we have these post-market surveillance mechanisms, we're going to immediately detect safety issues. I think going forward, regulators, providers, and healthcare medical device manufacturers need to think about how they can more proactively incorporate new data sources in order to catch ongoing safety issues. One of the questions is, what is one thing you'd like people to know about this area? I think it's important that everyone know that most medical devices are not coming onto the market with human clinical data. So there's no guarantee that these devices are safe or effective. And there's neither a guarantee that post-market surveillance mechanisms are going to pick up safety issues as they emerge. So if you're a patient or a provider, I think you maybe really want to think about whether you want to be the first person to adopt a medical device with a new software widget, whether that's a remote patient monitoring technology or anything else. What is your prediction for how this area will progress, or what would you like to see happen in this area? I think we can improve both in terms of pre-market review and post-market surveillance. On the pre-market side, I think we need to start moving away from the use of what are called substantial equivalence determinations when reviewing software products, and instead really require manufacturers to present data that a device works as intended, especially if this is the first time a software element has been introduced to that device. In terms of post-market surveillance, I think it would be great if we could add specific medical device identifiers to administrative claims data. So administrative claims data from health insurers is sort of like a bread and butter data source that's used by a lot of health services researchers and epidemiologists. And there's this huge branch of pharmacoepidemiology that uses this data to track if a patient uses a specific drug, what are their subsequent health outcomes. And we don't have an analogous data source when it comes to medical devices. So if these specific medical device identifiers were added to claims data, researchers would be able to track if a patient used a specific device and what happened to those patients and did they benefit from their use of the device.